I'm Kendra Cook, your host for the DCTV Daily News program out of Dove Creek, Colorado. The Dolores County Broadcasting Network is the producer of DCTV with support from the Southwest Colorado TV Translator Association. That's the special district association responsible for bringing the area free-to-access TV stations over the air by antenna. This is a community TV station, so if there's a news story or event information that you would like to share, you can call us. The number at the studio is 970-677-4119. And if you're a business or organization, we welcome you to find out about sponsorship opportunities for banners or video segments run on the channel. This is the Friday program for July 31st, 2020, DCTV Daily News. As pandemic protections expire, renters need new deals to stave off evictions, and that's the headline from the Durango Herald article on what is coming next after a year of deficit spending for stimulus and paycheck protections and all of the other monetary attempted fixes during the country's shutdown in many areas. Renters were given some leeway to help get them through potential job losses or lessened income, but that had to end at some point, and we're at that point. So in Colorado, the Durango Herald reports that Democrats and Republicans are working on a compromise to pass a second relief package for a nation still struggling with its response to the coronavirus pandemic. The relief would come none too soon, as evictions are predicted to rise considerably if renters aren't provided with relief. Quote, "It's incredibly concerning time," said Jack Regenbogen, who's the senior attorney at the Colorado Center on Law and Policy. Quote, "I'm gravely concerned that unless there's further policy intervention, whether it be at the federal level or state level, or ideally both, that we're going to witness unprecedented levels of eviction, displacement, and homelessness." Republicans in the Senate, led by Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, have struggled to come up with a package approved by Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin and President Donald Trump. After meetings last week, McConnell returned to the Senate with the HEALS Act, HEALS, a package that would include another round of $1,200 stimulus checks to eligible adults, but notably would not include a renewal of the federal eviction moratorium, which protects thousands of renters nationwide. But the Republican plan has already been met with criticism, both from outside organizations and members of the same party. Some, like Senators Rand Paul and Ted Cruz, have criticized the plan for adding more debt to the federal deficit. But organizations like the National Low Income Housing Coalition have said the plan falls far short of where it needs it to be nationwide. Quote, "Without immediate action, millions of people in America will be evicted from their homes during a pandemic," CEO Diane Yentl said in a news release. Senate Republican proposals would do next to nothing to avoid this predictable and preventable disaster. Gardner, in a statement provided to the Durango Herald, outlined his priorities for a coronavirus relief package. Quote, "I have 3 priorities that must be accomplished in the next coronavirus response effort: making sure that we're stopping the spread and flattening the curve, helping Coloradans with the immediate relief that they need to get through this crisis, and getting businesses up and running again," Gardner said. Quote, "I will continue fighting to ensure Coloradans get through this pandemic together." And Senator Bennett said on Monday that he's the Democrat from Colorado, released a statement calling the Republicans' proposal, quote, "woefully inadequate for the present concerns." Quote, "Today marks exactly 4 months since we passed the CARES Act, the last major bipartisan legislation to address the pandemic and economic crisis," Bennett said. Instead of using this time to engage in bipartisan negotiations over the next package, Republicans in Congress have frittered it away with a wait-and-see approach as the pandemic continued to rage across much of the country, end quote. The Democrats' relief package, a bill called the HEROES Act, that's HEROES, that passed the House of Representatives in May, includes robust protections for those whose income or housing has been affected by the pandemic, including an extension of the $600 per week federal unemployment assistance benefits. The plan also provides for $1,200 stimulus checks, though the bill includes a provision that would remove President Trump's name from the check. The bill also includes an extension of the federal eviction moratorium for an additional 12 months and requires landlords to give a 30 days notice of evictions after the moratorium expires. A spokesperson for Representative Scott Tipton, Republican from Colorado, did not respond to requests for comment. Tipton voted against the HEROES Act in the House. In a wave of evictions, an analysis of renter households nationwide by consultant firm Stuart Ricius Ross found that as many as 36% of such households in Colorado are in danger of rent payment shortfalls or eviction. Nationally, the number is even higher at 43%. Ragenbogen, who specializes in landlord-tenant law, said that the number is, quote, heartbreaking, and cautions that it is unlikely to improve anytime soon. There are so many families that I know of personally that they can't go back to work either because of the health risk, or their children are at home participating in school remotely, and they can't afford childcare, and they need to be home with their children, Ragenbogen said. While the Republicans' plan does budget for $3.3 billion in rental assistance funding, the figure is well below the $100 billion the National Low-Income Housing Coalition is calling for. Ragenbogen said that more assistance in all forms, from federal unemployment benefits to enhanced renters' protections at the state level, are needed to prevent a, quote, catastrophic wave of evictions by late August. Quote, that's a breathtaking number of Coloradans we're talking about who face eviction, Ragenbogen said. I think it's very real, and I just don't think the leadership at our highest levels from the governor's office down really appreciates what type of economic risk our families and our neighbors are facing. And now, let's take a look at our local hot weather. So our 5-day forecast for today, sunny with a high near 90 degrees. South winds around 10 miles an hour, and tonight mostly clear and a low around 60. For Rabbit, August 1st on Saturday, sunny with a high near 89 degrees. South-southeast winds 5 to 10 miles an hour. Saturday night, partly cloudy and a low around 57 degrees. And for Sunday, mostly sunny with a high near 91 degrees with southeast winds 5 to 10 miles an hour, and the winds could gust on Sunday as high as 20 miles an hour. Sunday night, mostly clear and a low around 58. And into next week, Monday, sunny with a high near 90 degrees. Monday night, mostly clear and a low around 59. Tuesday, sunny with a high near 90 degrees. Tuesday night, mostly clear and a low around 59. And imagine this, on Wednesday, sunny with a high near 90 degrees. Wednesday night, mostly clear and a low around 59. So if August comes in like a lion heat-wise, does this mean it will go out like a lamb into September? I hope so. Now, back to the news. Marijuana in Colorado is an issue that still remains a topic of interest, perhaps even more important in 2021 as a potential windfall of income for a town or a county, especially when looking at dwindling sales tax and potential losses of average income from oil and gas operations into next year, something to seriously consider and manage well. The Journal reported an update on what's happening with regard to marijuana retail and medicinal shops in Dolores, the town. They write that Dolores's pending pot regulations have created a type of gold rush, except it's marijuana green. In April, voters approved marijuana retail shops, commercial cultivation, testing, and manufacturing. But the small town, tucked in a narrow river valley, has limited space for commercial operations, and that has prospective business owners scrambling to grab up possible sites for the growing marijuana business. Quote, it is like the Klondike gold rush right now. We're getting a lot of calls about where these places will be allowed, said David Dowdy, Dolores's building inspector. Speculators from outside the area are monitoring Dolores's pending decisions on the matter, he said, and intend to buy up properties in anticipation of opening a commercial marijuana operation. Dowdy has heard reports of property owners in commercial and business districts that include homes dropping tenants in a bid to use their property as a marijuana facility. Adequate parking will be an issue for many locations, he said. Marijuana entrepreneurs could buy 2 lots and make 1 a parking lot. Homes within a business or commercial zone could be bought or torn down to make room for a marijuana business. A draft marijuana code is being created with a map for potential areas, but it could change, said Dolores Town Attorney John Kelly. There will be a temptation to look at the map and figure out which properties, so there is a disclaimer that there's no final decision until the board votes to enact an ordinance, he said. We're bouncing around ideas. Under Dolores's draft code, marijuana businesses could move into the commercial highway district and community business districts 1 and 2. They would not be allowed in strictly residential zones. It's unclear where marijuana product manufacturing could go, but it could be addressed through the land use code. State marijuana regulations include 1,000-foot buffer zones separating marijuana facilities from daycare centers and schools. But towns have the discretion to decide on the size of the buffer zone. They also can require buffers to keep facilities away from one another or away from places such as playgrounds, parks, and libraries. Dolores mapped out potential buffer zones of 1,000 feet, 750 feet, and 500 feet from the Dolores School's campus, the Teddy Bear School preschool, the school administration building, a daycare on 5th Street, and a charter school on the east end of town. Based on the varying draft buffer zones, the general areas where commercial marijuana facilities could be located include the west end of town, east of downtown, and an area a little west of the east side of town. The board discussed that under the 3 potential buffer scenarios, the Dolores Downtown Business District would not be available. Taking out the downtown area is unfortunate, said Dolores Mayor Chad Wheelis. I'd like to see downtown a little more revitalized, and it seems like a logical place. Voters wanted this, and finding ways to make it work is important. I'd hate to see housing torn down because that is the only option. Downtown is restricted under the smallest 500-foot buffer because the Dolores Schools Administration building on the corner of 6th and Central Avenue holds some student classes. The long vacant former Vectra Bank building on Colorado Highway 145 also would not be available under the 500-foot minimum buffer. Town Attorney John Kelly noted that marijuana is still illegal at the federal level. He said federal law enforcement mostly has been, quote, hands-off on states that have legalized the drug. However, there have been federal cease and desist orders issued against marijuana businesses that were allowed by municipalities to be within the 1,000-foot state standard from schools. The town is debating regulations for locations, size of facilities, and whether there will be a limit on the number allowed. Some board members suggested a limit of 2, others said no limit and let the market decide, and others said start with 2 and then change the law to allow more later if desired. Voters did not ask us to limit the number. They want it to occur, and it is our responsibility to allow it to occur, said board member Jen Stark. It was noted that the marijuana market will be self-limiting to a degree because there's not a lot of space available. The amount of additional tax revenues also will be affected depending on the amount of shops allowed. Quote, citizens may freak out if there were suddenly 4. I'd say let's move slow and have an adjustment period, said board member Sheila Wheeler. If the Dolores School District moves to a site out of town, more areas for marijuana businesses could open up. Officials emphasized no decisions on locations or number of operations have been made, and the discussions are all preliminary. The ordinance to regulate the marijuana facilities will involve 2 public hearings and a vote of the board. Final rules are expected to be in place by January 2nd. Then applications can be submitted. Dolores's draft code is modeled after the Natarita marijuana code. In another wrinkle, the town is going through a land use code revision, which would need to fit with the proposed ordinance for commercial marijuana. A special meeting between the Dolores Town Board and Dolores Planning and Zoning Board will discuss the marijuana regulation issue on August 4th at 6:30 p.m. Do you have an opinion for Dove Creek and or Dolores County? One way to find out what the citizens would like or not is to do what the town of Dolores did. Put it on a ballot as a referendum to be voted on once all the information and education is put out there to understand what is being voted on. Send in your questions or concerns or comments to us here at the TV station. We'd like to hear what you think. It's dcbnnews@gmail.com. The Durango Herald reports it appears the Environmental Protection Agency has found a place for long-term storage of mine waste near Silverton. The EPA announced this week it is proposing a waste repository for the Bonita Peak Mining District Superfund site on top of the existing tailings impoundment, that's correct, near the Mayflower Mill, which is about 2 miles northeast of Silverton off County Road 2. The site, EPA officials say, would serve as a long-term option to store waste that is generated from Superfund cleanup actions, as well as sludge from the water treatment plant that takes its discharges from the Gold King mine. It's also going to be there for the long haul to accommodate any waste we'll need to remove, said Christina Progress, the EPA's lead for the Superfund site. The proposal comes with one caveat, however. The property is owned by Sunnyside Gold Corporation. The EPA has asked for approval from Silverton's last operating mining company and has yet to hear back. Gina Myers, a spokeswoman for Sunnyside Gold, said in an email to the Durango Herald that SGC had previously offered EPA the use of Mayflower ground for storage of sludge from the underutilized treatment plant. Myers did not clarify whether Sunnyside Gold will allow EPA access or not. The need for a centrally located permanent dump site for mine waste has been an ongoing issue for EPA ever since the Superfund was declared in the fall back in 2016, about a year after the agency triggered a blowout at the Gold King mine in 2015. The water treatment plant constructed after the blowout generates up to 6,000 cubic yards of sludge a year, or about a football field buried in 3 feet of muck. And there's a little room on site for storage. and in the future, the EPA will need a place to take waste removed from other projects. In the past years, the EPA has proposed hauling the waste 70 miles to a landfill south of Durango. The agency also had a temporary fix, mixing sludge with the Kitimak tailings pile about 6 miles north of Silverton. In August of 2019, Sunnyside Gold offered the EPA access to its property at the Mayflower Tailings Repository, a large series of 4 impoundments of historic mined waste rock that operated until the early 2000s. Quote, "The site is an ideal and proven site for a repository for the water treatment plant, and in the interest of good faith in improving water quality, SGC has granted EPA access for this evaluative work," the company said at the time. Progress said that the EPA sent Sunnyside Gold a consent for access request and hopes to hear of a final decision by mid-August. Quote, "We're hoping they give us access," Progress said. "We'd have to evaluate our options if they don't and figure out the best path forward." What complicates matters, however, is that Sunnyside Gold is considered a, quote, "potentially responsible party," a term the EPA uses for companies that may be on the hook for cleanup costs in a superfund. Over the past couple of years, Sunnyside Gold has outright refused EPA work orders in the watershed, called for the EPA to recuse itself from leading the cleanup, and questioned the scope and necessity of the Superfund site. If access were granted, the EPA would start a phased approach at the Mayflower tailings. The liner would be placed on top of the existing piles for the new waste, which would then be capped. All told, the EPA's plan would have the capacity to store up to 609,000 cubic yards of mine waste and sludge. Use of the site, however, would vary year to year depending on current projects and need. It's really big. Progress on site to have a repository we can use for decades to come, Progress said. That's really going to set us up well for success in the future. The EPA's Bonita Peak Superfund consists of 48 mining-related sites around Silverton, seen as the worst loaders of heavy metal into the Animas River, impacting water quality and aquatic life throughout the watershed. The Mayflower tailings are suspected of leaching heavy metals into the Animas River, which has prompted Sunnyside Gold to conduct its own multi-year investigation into the matter. Progress said that the investigation remains ongoing and the EPA would use a different, more stable location at Impoundment 1 on the site to store its waste to begin with. She said leaching is suspected at Impoundment number 4. "We feel comfortable starting the work at Impoundment 1, she said. That will allow us years of use while the investigation on Impoundment 4 can continue. The public can comment on the proposed plan until August 27th. A virtual public hearing will be held at 6 p.m. on August 11th. Progress said that the EPA hopes to have the site constructed and ready for use by fall of 2021, about the time storage at the water treatment plant for the Gold King mine is expected to reach capacity. The need to expedite access for construction is really essential, she said. And to comment or view on the project details, go online to epa.gov/superfund/bonita-peak. So here is perhaps an interesting press release, the subject of people across the U.S. receiving unsolicited packages marked from China, maybe saying jewelry inside, and it turns out to be seeds. Different seeds. Seeds for what exactly? No one is sure. Or why this is happening. Could it be a psyop to distract from all of the other myriad chaotic things happening, from COVID to ballot fraud, high governmental fraud potential being brought to indictment levels, and pedophile rings and, or worse, gaining some time in the spotlight? Yes, Gillian, that means you. And it's the presidential election year, always a hoot for what will no doubt be a bombshell of an October surprise on tap. Might even be disclosure on non-native species, and by that I mean what is loosely termed aliens, unless, of course, information is released and confirmed that we are the hybrid species with off-planet DNA as well. This and many more questions and issues are concerns, and are concerns growing throughout 2020. So back to this seed deal. Here's what the Colorado Department of Agriculture released yesterday. The headline is, Ag Department activates Colorado reporting hotline for unsolicited seed mailings. In response to numerous reports from across the state of people receiving unsolicited packages of seeds in the mail, the Colorado Department of Agriculture has activated a dedicated reporting hotline number. Those who have received unsolicited seeds in the mail are asked to call 303-869-9081. That's 303-869-9081 to report them. And reports of mailings may also be submitted via email at cda_nursery@state.co.us, right here. The packages appear to have originated from China and other countries, and many are labeled as containing jewelry or other items. The department currently has no reason to believe these packages are dangerous and is taking all precautions to ensure safety. Unsolicited seeds could be invasive, introduce diseases to local plants, or be harmful to livestock. Anyone who receives an unsolicited package of seeds is asked to hold on to the seeds and packaging in its original package safely, including the mailing label, until contacted by the Colorado Department of Agriculture or the USDA Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service with further instructions. Do not plant the seeds from unknown origins, and do not put the seeds in the trash, which could ultimately end up in the landfill and then sprout. USDA's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service is working closely with the Department of Homeland Security's Customs and Border Protection and state departments of agriculture to prevent the unlawful entry of prohibited seeds and protect U.S. agriculture from invasive pests and noxious weeds. Additional information will be released as it becomes available. Or maybe they are like the little seahorses, those little foam toys you used to get as a kid. Remember those? When you put them in the water, they grow, or actually expand, right before your eyes. I don't think anyone had dangerous seeds on the list of things to look out for in August of 2020. Still haven't seen the murder wasps, thankfully, and those meth alligators can stay in Florida. Thank you. These stories and other information and more are on our Facebook page, which is DCTV Daily News, where you can also watch the program replay along with the news links and stories of local interest. And you too can share other events or news there and join in on the conversation. This is your local community TV station. So if you have something you would like to share, contact us. The email is dcbnnews@gmail.com, or you can call us at 970-677-4119. Thank you for tuning in to DCTV Daily News. Programs are broadcast Monday through Friday with replays online on our YouTube channel or the DCTV Daily News page on Facebook. And if you like the program, please do like and follow us on Facebook and share it with your friends and family. This has been a production of DCTV for the DCTV Daily News program out of Dove Creek, Colorado, USA. I'm Kendra Cook. Thank you for watching and have a great weekend.